So today is a bit of an introduction because Allenbrook's been friends with Jofi School for about 4 or 5 years, where every Friday, I think it is, you have a video call with your sponsored children in Gambia. And as a result of that, we've now got each of the care homes that we operate all has its own little group of kids. And based upon that, it gave me an idea to expand it. But this is me. We originally bought Allenbrook in 2003, so that's our 20th anniversary this year. And the principle was about love, care and family. So I've been in the commercial world for a very long time. And over the years, I got very disgruntled with the commercial world, and I got more into what made me tick. And about 7 years ago, I was in Bournemouth out one night, and I met a homeless girl. As a result of that, I started a homeless charity 7 years ago, and Amy's here somewhere. Amy's at the back. Amy now runs that for us, where we go out every night and we feed, clothe and help the homeless. But the principle is, you don't just feed somebody, you teach them how to fish for themselves. Because if you keep doing it for them, they'll never learn. So everything that we're about is about pay forward, to help people learn new skills, which they then in turn can pass on. So going on from then, the foundation and the bee mission we started, and if a lot of you know, we've got a bee farm here, and we've got little prezzies for everybody towards the end, if you like honey. On the back of that, I started sponsoring some kids myself 7 years ago. My sister-in-law said there's a nice school in Gambia. And the trouble with me with sponsoring charities is I've sponsored lots of charities over the years, but you never know how much of the money that you give actually goes to the beneficiary at the end. And I got very jaundiced when I saw no impact for what I was trying to do. So I came out of all the big charities and I started doing my own thing. So first I started the charity in Bournemouth 7 years ago. Then we started Bee Mission, which creates employment opportunities for the homeless to teach them how to get skills so they can go back and have a great life. And then I met Jofi School, which is Julie's here from Gambia, and I started sponsoring my first 7 kids. And then about 2-3 years ago, Julie rang me, and one of my first kids, Kodu, who is now 13, and I started sponsoring him when she was 6, had to go to high school. And that was a problem, because there's no real continuity for what Julie does at Jofi School for these kids to go on and learn proper education and employment. So I started working with Julie about a year or so ago, and I said, what can we do to create a proper pathway so there's continuity of their education, and we can help them create employment opportunities at the end. So then Julie says, well, I've got some friends of mine I'd like to meet as well. So next she introduced me to Jackie, whose Glove Project, which is a children's amputee program. So I started working with Jackie, I don't know, a year or so ago. And then on the back of meeting Jackie, I then met Anita. Anita's here somewhere. Anita here, who is the chief motivator for the Bangsang Hospital in Gambia. And then between this lot, they all ganged up on me and they introduced me to Alpha, who's like my son that I've always wanted. And I'll let them all talk their individual stories, but they've each run their own projects. And the main principle is, not only they put every single penny of their own into this for the last 30 years, but they take nothing out of it. It is all done for love and passion and pay forward for others. So I wanted to do a little presentation for you today, and see how this works. And if this goes as a pilot, yes, I'll be asking you to get your checkbooks out at some stage. Thank you very much. But the main thing also is to find what other people that you may know that we can connect to. Because the 30, 40 people here could have an exponential impact if you each know somebody else who knows somebody else. It's what I call pay forward. And that's what my life is all about now. So I'm coming out of the commercial world and I'm devoting all my time now to projects. So we've got the 4 projects in Gambia. We've got a couple here in the UK. So if I may, I'd like to introduce Julie Mayo from Jofi School.
I started getting involved in Jofi School around 2010. Now, we, with my husband Luigi, came to the Gambia 30 years ago and we started a hotel. We started as a restaurant, but we wanted a hotel. So as time went on, recruiting staff we found very, very difficult because the lack of education in the Gambia meant that the people there don't really understand our ways. We know that, if you're not taught something, you really don't understand it. So if you don't know how to work a washing machine, you can't expect somebody to know how to use a washing machine. And this caused a lot of complications because in the industry we were in, the staff hadn't got the experience we needed. And there was nowhere for us to recruit from. So this was a big problem for us. So one of the main reasons I was really interested in getting involved with Joffy was because I realised very early on that we really needed to start education at a young age. It's no good waiting until they're 15, 16 or 18 before they go on training courses. If they don't understand the principles from a child, they cannot learn. They need to learn through experience. They need to learn the ways of adulthood. They need to learn skills. So I was very keen to learn about getting involved in Joffy School when I met Joe and Fiona. So now we came to realise the root of the problem was that the children in the state schools, there are 50 to 70 children in one classroom. One classroom alone is just 50 to 70 children. Can you imagine? They never have the time of the teacher. They can never ask a question. They have very few resources, so they're stuck in a classroom, very hot most of the time. So they can never actually learn anything in those conditions. And for most families, even if they do get to go to state school, they can't afford the books. They have to pay for exercise books, pencils, uniform. They don't have that money. People are living hand to mouth. So unless we can really put some money in and offer free education, these children, their lives will never change. And so this is why I really want to get involved to improve the school education system in the Gambia. Really and truly, a lot of these children, they don't have the opportunity to learn anything. Not all of them are going to be academic. So we need to be able to teach them skills, trades like electricians and builders, carpenters. We can't get anybody to do the work in our hotels because there's nobody understands the trades. So we need to teach the children from an early age so that they can learn the skills and get jobs at the end of it. So what we need to do is pay forward. We need now to share our knowledge, help those less fortunate. We need to provide the free quality education that the children need. And we need to offer them the academic opportunities to learn those skills. So this is Joe and Fiona. They started Joffy. They really wanted to offer the education for the poor children. And if you can see on this screen here, you can see the conditions. I mean, it is absolutely appalling. People are living in these tiny huts and things around this quarry. It's dreadful. This is absolute squalor. And these are the conditions that people are living in there. They have no way of earning any money. They scrape around selling old bottles or pieces of scrap metal, and that's how they earn their living. They don't have any opportunities. They have no education. So they are stuck in this void. So they started a little school, but this is the first school they had. But the thing, still, the children had to pay the school fees because they still needed to buy exercise books and pencils. And they had to charge because they had no funds themselves. So because of this situation, they were struggling. And this is how I came to get to know them, because they then decided to come round to the hotels and ask for sponsorship through the hotels. And this is where we came in, because having the hotel, I had guests coming, and a lot of my guests were interested in sponsoring children. And as Chris said before, it's that personal thing to have something that you can actually see happen. You have a big corporation, you don't know where the money is going to. But this individual one-to-one means that when you sponsor a child, you can see how they're progressing. You can see if they are learning. You get a report at the end of the year, and you know whether your child is actually benefiting from the money that you are spending for them. The school, unfortunately, that first school had a setback because it didn't have a perimeter wall. And then when the landlady saw that we were helping her, then they decided to put the rent up. And the school itself was not in a good condition. It had very primitive, it just had a hole in the floor for a toilet, and it wasn't anywhere good enough for a school. So we managed to find this premises, and it had a proper wall, and we started the school here. We managed to paint it, clean it, and all the neighbours came round and they all decided to help. They said, if we don't have money, but we can help you clean everything, because they were really happy that their children were going to get a school. So everybody got involved, and it was a really good community, and they all helped to clean the building up, and we got this beautiful school. This is some of the children even cleaning here, and then this is how we ended up. We painted inside the school and made it nice and clean and fresh. We put proper toilets, and they started Joffy School properly. Unfortunately, okay, before we go to, okay, go to the next one. Go to the next picture. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Right, so now you can see here, not only is it about educating the children, if you look at this first picture here, this is the same two children 1 year later. This is a feeding program. We put feeding program in as well as education. The children cannot learn if they're hungry. So you can see these two little girls here. This was 2011. 1 year later, 1 year in school, and under the feeding program we had, look at the difference, their chubby faces. You can see it immediately. They were really happy at school, they were learning, and they look healthy and they look happy. You can see their eyes are much brighter now. Okay. So this was our feeding program. We were from the hotel. We would bring food every day, and we gave them a nourishing meal, which was high in protein, and they also had things like cakes and pies and such like. So they really, now everything was starting to work properly. Unfortunately, in 2011, Fiona had a bad fall. She had weak knees already, so she wasn't very healthy. She had a terrible fall and she had to go back to England. So from there, when she went back to England, they made some problem with her back when she had her operation, and it meant Joseph, her husband, also had to go to England. So that's how I got really, really involved, because I then had to take over the administration of the school. So from November 2012, Mr. Kaba, who is somewhere in this picture over here, was running the school as the headmaster, and I was taking care of the administration. And then through sponsorship, through my hotel, or our hotel, we managed to get our guests, there's some of our guests here, and they were sponsoring the children individually, and they would meet the child, and they would get to know the families, and they knew that the money that they were spending was going to educate that child. And they see each child through to primary school. From there, this is another very important lady that came to the school. She is Linda's daughter, Deanne. She came and she really fell in love with the school, and she wanted to do a lot for us. And she raised money through parties, and she raised quite a bit of money for the school. Also, the dentists came. Sometimes the sponsorship isn't always about just the money. It's about helping the school individually. And we had a group of dentists, and they would come every year and look at the children's teeth, and they would help the children, give them free dental treatment. So that was also something else that was really important. Now, Deanne brought her mom, Linda, to the Gambia, and they also really loved the school. And sadly, Johnny, her husband, passed away a month after they went home. But Linda decided, when she lost her husband, to come and live in the Gambia. So when she came to live in the Gambia, she got really involved with the school. And Linda is a very good friend of Michelle, who is Chris's sister-in-law. So this is how we got to meet Chris. And Chris also started sponsoring some children in the school. So 5 years on, I'd been running the little nursery school with Mr. Kaba, but Joe and Fiona were now at the point they wanted to come back, but we needed to do something to improve it. So we decided that we would try to raise funds to build a new school. We needed to really improve the education that we were giving the children. We weren't obviously giving a lot, we were only giving nursery education at that time. So we decided that we would raise funds and build the school. We had a couple of large companies helped us with some donations, and then through our other guests from the hotel, they also helped us with some donations, and we managed to build Joffrey School. This is the Joffrey Primary School. This is how it looks today. So we purchased the land and we built it in 2017. In 6 months we went from zero to this, 6 months. And we opened the school in September 2017. Joe and Fiona came back to run the school, and everything was going great. We were really doing well. The school was really progressing, and teaching the children isn't just about academic teaching. We wanted the children to learn a lot. We wanted them to learn outside the box. So we had drama classes. Linda got very heavily involved, and she volunteered and started a drama group, and we put a full production of Joseph's Multicoloured Dreamcoat. It was absolutely amazing. The kids were wonderful, and they really, really enjoyed it. We made all the costumes, as you can see here, and the production was incredible. And in fact, the boy that he played Joseph, he learned all his lines in 3 weeks. Can you imagine? And there was 21 songs in that production. It was incredible. But the lead singer, that played Joseph, was absolutely amazing. 3 weeks, and he learned everything. And even the local TV network, they put it on the children's TV program in the Gambia, and it was played on the local TVs. So everything was going fine, and then, as we all know, COVID struck. 2020, disaster. But unlike the children in Europe, they don't have iPads. We don't even have electricity in their homes. So they were sent home, and they had nothing. They weren't able to have any kind of schooling at all. Most of the children don't have any opportunity at all. So, everything had dried up, and from there, we just had to carry on hand to mouth. And sadly, unfortunately, also in 2021, Fiona's health deteriorated, and she had to go back to UK for good this time. So that meant that I was back in charge of the school, and but we employed another headmaster, Mr. Barr, and he's now the current headmaster. And then there's another lady called Julie Baker who has been helping us. She's an educational consultant, and she makes sure that a lot of teacher training programs go on, and that the teachers are learning to European standards to teach the children in turn to a high standard of education. So this is where we are today. We are trying to teach the children a quality education, not just chalk and board where they sit in front of a classroom and listen to the teacher. They are actually active in their role as students and learning properly. Then, of course, we were still struggling with finances, and then our saviour came, Chris. Chris had been sponsoring 5 children quietly for a few years. Then he decided to get more involved, and I think this is where you all come in. He arranged for you to have 6 children to each of his care homes. At that time, we didn't know it was Chris. We weren't aware of that. And then, obviously, that's been set up for the last couple of years. You've been Zooming with our children, and they've been talking to you over the Zoom calls. So that's where we are with them up to now. And then came the crunch of the grade 6, where the first of Chris's children came to grade 6. And I think, as he mentioned earlier, there is Kodu. She needed to go on to a high school because we finished in grade 6. And so I had to ask Chris, and he said he would continue sponsoring her. She took the exam for the other school and got in, so she's very happy now. At that time, she was very, very despondent because she didn't think she was going to go anywhere because she didn't have money. Her parents didn't have money. They weren't able to pay for another school, so she thought her education was finished. So that's why I spoke to Chris, and he came along and said yes, he would continue her education for her. But then the big question was, last year we only had 5 students for grade 6, so they all went to a different school. But this year we have 19. This coming grade 6 is 19 students. So what are we going to do now? We can't pay for another school with 19 students. So then Chris came up with the idea that we should build a high school. And he has now actually purchased the land nearby Joffy. We've bought the land, ready to build the high school. That land, obviously, we need to raise funds now, and this is our big project that we need to do. We need to build the high school, and we want to build it with a skills centre and different trades that the children can learn if they're not academic as well. It's not just about the academic children. We need to be able to give a future for all the children. As I said earlier, they really do need to be able to have a future, a job. We've also, in this school, Chris gave us the money to make an IT room. We didn't have a space for the computers, so he's gave us the money to make an extension. We have a Pacific room for IT now, which obviously helps the children to learn with that as well. And also the borehole. We had to build a borehole because we didn't have any water. Sometimes we don't have water for 3 days to a week, so we needed to have that. So Chris also kindly helped us with that, and we raised that. So he had a list: red list, amber list. So the red list was the urgent things that we needed to do, which was the borehole and the extensions. And then the amber list is the new property that we've just built. This is a small photo we have here, but obviously this is how we bought it, but now we need to raise this to the ground and start again and build a school specifically for our needs. Another part of the schooling that is really important is the excursions. So these are some photos of the children that have been out on excursions this year. Again, Chris helped us with that. We even took some of the children up country to the slave trade house, which is 300 miles inland. It was a very good experience for them, cultural experience. They really did learn a lot from that. These photos on this side are some classes I take. I do food science classes. I'm teaching them to cook and nutrition. And we teach them how to preserve foods. So they're learning the skills that they need for life, which is very, very important for their future too. So the conclusion, the children that we have, they have the spirit and they have the thirst of knowledge. Education is the advantage for them. These children, they don't take their opportunities to go to school for granted. These children they really, really do want to be at school and they want to learn. I have children knocking on the door in the mornings, asking if they can come in. I have children waiting, queuing to get a place in the school. The children in Gambia, this is something, it's like a gift for them. And they really, really want to be able to succeed in life. But to give them the opportunity and the sense of pride to achieve something with their lives is so important. And the reward for us is to see them each day, their faces, and when they learn something new, the excitement on their faces when they learn. This is so important for these children to get a good future. And quite honestly, if the Gambia is going to improve, it can only improve through education. The people in the Gambia will not be able to stand on their own 2 feet if they cannot produce their own educated children. We cannot get doctors or nurses if they cannot learn in the Gambia and be educated in the Gambia. We need to provide the education in Gambia to provide the other institutes and jobs for the other people when they grow up. Okay, I think.
Hi, good afternoon everybody. I'm Jackie Church and I head up the Glove Project in the Gambia. And the Glove Project was set up in 2007 became registered in Gambia 2007 and registered in the UK in 2008. And it was originally set up as village redevelopment. So, and we worked on the North Bank, so we had to cross on the ferry and, you know, into the rural villages. And so we did a lot of village redevelopment. These are solar water systems. We were very fortunate to get some good partnerships to be able to do these. And we also had, slow down now, we were also fortunate to be successful in getting a good bid with Engineers Without Borders USA, and they taught me everything I know about boreholes and drilling wells and even the wells on these huge towers. So that was a good bit of learning. From these, and we have six solar water systems, 6 different villages. Now, the villages can't afford to financially pay towards, and I am very much aware of the dependency culture throughout Africa, but very aware of it in the Gambia. And I was like, no, we don't just give, because if we just give, how they're going to, you know, own it? So in return, what they did, they dug all of the trenches, and you're talking 80 centimetres deep and miles of them for these pipes. And that was their contribution to the systems, which was very important to do. And from these solar systems, in most of the villages, the boreholes were strong enough, the yield was strong enough to give us community gardens. And these community gardens are so important because it means the villagers can feed themselves, the women, they're like allotments. The women grow the vegetables and they can feed themselves with excess that they sell at the markets, which then can pay for the pencils and the uniforms, etc., for the children to go to school. So really good is income generation as well as nutrition. And one of the things we found, which I know Alpha, it's going to be important too, in these gardens we had the reinforced wire fencing around. But you know, in Gambia, even the animals are so hungry. There's no feed for animals, they're free foraging. And you're talking about these huge horned cows, huge horns. Well, these fences don't keep them out, do they? So they regularly smash through the wire fencing and ate all the crop, which was devastating, absolutely devastating. And in Gambia, you can't go and buy a brick. No, you've got to make your own. So you've got to mix your sand and your cement and have your mould, and you've got to make all your bricks. And we managed to raise enough money to build walls around to keep the animals out, to protect the crops. And that is a critical, a very expensive, but a critical thing that needs to be done. This is just typical of some of the villages that we work in. And one of the things that most of the houses are made from mud blocks. And the storms in the rainy season are vicious and violent with massive winds and rain. So frequently, these mud houses are knocked down. So you will find every year we'll get an emergency plea for help for rebuilding. And then we'll put a plea out on our Facebook to say, can anybody help? Does anybody have any money to help us with this sort of situation? Something else we did in the villages, we didn't have enough money, obviously, to do solar water systems throughout all the villages in that particular region. But what we did do, we renovated 35 wells, so at least they still had access to water, as did the animals. Actually, something I'm missing right now, and I was just saying to Julie, one of the things we've done a lot of is what I call the elderly care programme. There's no elderly care in Gambia. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So we'd go around the villages when funds allowed, and we take our blood pressure machine and we take our ibuprofen and a few paracetamol and tins of sardines. These are little tins of sardines, absolute luxury, very high in nutrition, good with the oil. We take walking sticks, sacks of rice, oats, multivitamins, crutches, and you know, we just stop at a poor village and walk around and just sit with the elderly and give them a bit of love and care, and just, you know, a few paracetamol and a tin of sardines. Well, the woman, blankets. blankets, absolutely made up with the basics, and I'm missing this actually. We've also renovated several nursery schools over on the North Bank as well. Yeah. This is rice distribution, again in the rural villages. When funds allow, we'll buy up a sack of, a load of rice, whatever, you know, £500 will buy 22, 23 sacks, 50 kilogram sacks of rice. And we'll take it over to the villages and just arrive and distribute this rice. It's like all the Christmases have come at once. You know, they're hungry, they're really hungry. So as you see here, this is our project manager, Barbuka, who's always about, yeah. And this is Andrew, one of our volunteers. Now, we did that from 2007. And 2019, I came across a young boy who'd been amputated. And he'd been chased away from the hospital, and I'm thinking, why? What's going on? Well, apparently, if you can't pay for the prosthetic, well, you can't have it. Oh, what do you mean you can't have it? Well, who's going to... No, you can't have it. Unless the family find the money, you can't have it. It's not available. So I did a lot of research. There must be an organisation or a charity or a government department that'll help these children. No, not one, not a single one. So that's how our child amputee programme started, with a young boy called Dembo. So we had this stump moulded and had the prosthetic leg fitted. And this is just some of the children that we have. This little boy here, the bone, when we found him in the villages, I was actually out, or we were out, doing rice distribution, just stopping at a random village that was very poor, distributing rice. And I come across this little boy, Mamadou. And his bone was growing out, being amputated, the bone was growing out. And this little boy here, and there's photographs of him later, he'd been thrown in the bush, age 5, to die, left. And an old pa found him and took him to his own home. And this old pa had nothing. He was in a mud hut with a straw roof, but he couldn't leave the boy. And then we came across him. So that's how we met Mamadou. And these are just some of our children here. Disability in the Gambia, you're worthless. It's non-negotiable. You're worthless. You can only ever be a beggar. So even if you were in school before, you're definitely not going to go to school now, because why should I pay for your school uniform and your books and pencils? Because you can only ever be a beggar. So you get thrown out, you get thrown away. This is some of our children here. And I smile when I see them, you know, because they are such darlings. Samuel is quite new. Samuel was amputated in June last year. This is Samuel. All these here are Samuel. And he fell from a mango tree, like scrumping apples. He got up the mango tree and he fell. Broken leg, very simple. Go to the hospital and have a plaster put on and it's sorted. No, they took him to the local witch doctor instead. So for a simple break in a lower leg, 3, 4, 5 months later he has a massive infection, gangrene sets in, and poor little Samuel is amputated right the way up to here. He's 10 years old. He's 10 years old. Very, very sick, very sad. Didn't think he was going to survive, even after the surgery. He did survive. And here he is, having the mould done for his prosthetic. And here he is with his first prosthetic. And Julie knows how difficult it was to get this prosthetic to fit because it's so short. So he has to have a belt to hold it on this way and then another strap to hold it on this way. And he's now riding a bike. So we taught him to walk. We got him well first. We looked after him in hospital. We got him well. We got his prosthetic. We taught him to walk and we taught him to ride a bicycle. He's been thrown out by his mother and father. He's been given to his maternal grandmother, which is a big insult. It's a big shame in the Gambian culture. If you're given to your father's mother, it's okay. But your mother's mother, no. So our aim for him is for his family, his mother and father, to accept him back into the family compound. In the meantime, he's so wild on his bike, the grandmothers had to confiscate it and lock it up because he's going too far on the bike and she can never find him. That's exactly what we want. Babu here is from Bansang, and this is how he was when he came to us. You see how malnourished he was. Now this boy, again, very, very short, cut very, very high, 8 years on one leg. 8 years he'd never had a prosthetic, and a teacher in that local area had come across him in one of the villages and referred him to our project manager, and that's at the far end of the country. And this is Babu when he had his leg fitted on, and he's getting much stronger and much better. He's riding a bicycle now. When his father is an elderly widow, and when his father came back to collect him, his rehab was about 5 or 6 weeks, and when his father came back to collect him, his father just dropped to his knees and he was so shocked, crying, saying, "I never thought I'd see my boy on 2 legs again, let alone riding a bicycle." And that still chokes me now. Oh, this is our baby Fatima. She's our youngest. Baby Fatima was only 4 months old when she had both lower limbs amputated. She was born with septicemia. And we were really worried because up to the age of 2, she's on the back. A child's carried on the back, so you can't see the legs. But at the age of 2, once they're put down, she's going to be rejected. So I was terrified she would be abandoned and left to starve, which I've known happen. But thankfully I managed to get some little feet just in time. Like 2 months before her 2nd birthday, I got these tiny little feet delivered to me at Heathrow Airport as I was about to return, and we managed to have her fitted initially with these legs just before our 2nd birthday. She'd never walked, she'd never stood, so this is, absolutely wonderful. And here she is learning to walk, sitting on her ice donation, learning to walk again. And then she progressed to these little legs, little pink ones. But she's a bit of a tinker, She really is. She's 4 now. She's just 4. And she is one of the worst for destroying her legs. And you know what she does? The boys in the compound disturb her. You know what she does? She takes them off and batters the boys with them and breaks them all the time. So every couple of months we're having to buy new prosthetics because our baby Fatima is battering the boys with them. So we're trying to find it. Oh, this last ones we've had done a couple of months ago, we've tried to have them made stronger. And we've left her with an old pair. We haven't told her to use these to batter the boys, but we're hoping that she does and doesn't use the new ones. Again, this is Al-Mami, very malnourished, very sad state. And this is just some of the prosthetics. They're old, second-hand, pretty ancient prosthetics, none of the modern stuff that we have now. And this is, again, a very high amputation. So we're having to develop. We have a technician now, he's the expert, yeah? But Jackie has to be there saying, no, that's not going to work. No, can we do this here? No, can we put another belt there? So, it's hands-on with everything all of the time. And Al-Mami, as you can see, very, very malnourished. He was run over by a car some years beforehand. Again, he's not with his parents. He's been thrown out. And we had quite a major child protection issue with this boy. We were doing home visits, and home visits are critical to monitor how they're getting on. We found this little boy very, very flat and very sick, and he'd been that way for 3 days apparently, and he hadn't been taken to hospital. So we took him to the local clinic, and we had to inform the local child protection team, social welfare. Well, on and on and on it goes, like only you can in the Gambia. I can't even begin to explain that process to you. But the end result was 3 or 4 days later, I get a phone call to say, don't worry, Jackie, Al-Mami's going to a place of safety. Wonderful. Is that the children's shelter? No, Jackie, it's your house. We'll be there in 5 minutes. So Al-Mami was placed with us on a place of safety where he stayed for about 3 months until he was stronger. children obviously continue to grow, don't they? Children grow. And the bone doesn't stop growing after they've been amputated. So this is another big issue for us. This is the little boy, Mamadou, I was telling you about in all of these pictures, where we found who'd been abandoned, thrown out in the bush and left to die, and he had to be re-amputated. The bone continues to grow, and frequently it grows through the skin. And the minute it's out of the skin, infection will set in and it'll kill them. It'll kill them. So again, home visits, the prosthetics off, and we're having to feel and monitor everything. And this poor little chappie has had 4 re-amputations now. 4 in 2.5 years. And it's got so bad, because you know healthcare there is not like here. You don't have all the pampering, pre-op stuff and sedation and everything. And this little one, last year, walking him into theatre, well, he's got one crutch and he's jumping, and I'm walking him into theatre and, you know, I'm kissing him. You'll see Auntie Jackie later. I'll be here waiting for you. Next thing I know, all is screaming and shouting and everybody's screaming Jackie. So I went running down the corridor because I'd gone to the room to check on Kadijatu because she was going into theatre next. I went running down the corridor and I just managed to catch him by the back of the gown, jumping on one leg, just about to go out the door where all the traffic is, all the back end flapping open, showing these little loppy as we call it, and I managed to catch him. He jumped off the operating theatre and legged it. So terrified, absolutely terrified. So I even have to fight with the medics. I mean, that was a huge fight of, what on earth are you doing? Sedate him first. You're not moving him from this bed now unless you sedate him. So, you know, it's a constant fight. But this, the re-trimming, the re-amputation, it's a constant thing, and it's expensive. This is a few of our, more of our children. A re-amputation here. This is Babu, the one you saw earlier on from Bansang, who, very high amputation. Look at how strong he is there and healthy with his bicycle. And that's his old dad. And this is Anna, one of our girls. Again, full prosthetic. And once they've been re-amputated, they come to my house for a minimum of 2 weeks until the sutures are out and the scar is dry. Because to go back to their dusty, dirty compounds, the risk of infection is massive. So we need to get past the worst of that risk. And once they're finished, the last photograph there, once they've recouped after their surgery or they've completed their rehabilitation, we give them medals. And they love these little medals. So we make a big fuss and we give them medals, you know, of congratulations and achievement. And this, I'm groaning a bit because this young man here is our newest, I guess, our newest amputee. But he's amputated through the hip. And in Gambia, the answer is no, you can't have. Don't even ask us, Jackie, it's not possible. Please take him away. No, Gabu, we can do this, we can do it together. So we're trying to mould and draw and imagine something just to try and give this child some hope of normalisation, because they can never be accepted with one leg. It's not an option. It's not an option. 2 legs, it doesn't matter if one's iron or wood or gold, it doesn't matter what it's made of, as long as you got 2. As long as you got 2 legs, it's okay. So we came up with this contraption, which still needs some adjustment, but he's walking. He'll be able to go back to school in September, and he can sit down and he can ride a bike, and he's absolutely over the moon. And this is just some of our, this is the prosthetic centre in the background here. And just some of our other children. And we're given rice, given food packages, rice, clothes and things. Oh, we also make things fun as well. Don't laugh at that one. There's Jackie, look, on the little 3-wheeler, which is our trainer trike, where we train the children how to ride a bicycle without falling off. And it's got a little carry basket in the back. So look, there's baby Fatima having a ride and me pedalling away. So, yeah. Yeah. This is Ibrahim, and this is big Ibrahim, and this is very recent. 2 years ago, this young lad was referred to us at 15, massive foot tumours, really nasty. And for 2 years, 18 months, it's been a fight and a struggle and a fight and a struggle with medics. And eventually they took the tumours away and sent them off for biopsies, which took months and months. And they were malignant. And then he needed an MRI scan, which was difficult. We got the MRI scan and the cancer was still there. So he had to be amputated. Now, for a Muslim generally, I understand, Alpha will know better, cannot agree to have a body part taken off. If it's an emergency road crash and they take it off, it's not your choice, is it? But this young lad was given a choice. If you leave it, you will die at some stage. We don't know when, but you will. But if you take it off, you could well lead a long, happy life. A difficult choice for a Muslim, a difficult choice for anyone, but for a Muslim to choose, he was very, very brave and he chose the amputation. And we're at the hospital and he's in theatre and we're waiting for him to come out to make sure he's okay, because then we're going to buy all the medication. And we're handed a carrier bag, folks. We handed a carrier bag. It's the leg. We had to take to the cemetery and dig a hole and bury it. Can you imagine? That's what we have to deal with. That's how Gambia is. You know, devastating, devastating. He's doing really, really well. He's actually our newest one. He hasn't yet. He'll go this week and be moulded for his prosthetic. He was with me. It should have been 2 weeks post-op, but he was with me for a good 6 weeks because his wound broke open. His nutritional state pre-operation wasn't very good and his wound broke open. But he's fine now. Ibrahim's story, devastating story. This is how we met Ibrahim in June last year. There's a disease, an infection called osteomyelitis, which if you have a broken bone and it's left untreated, it will attack you. And it did attack him because he was left alone with a brother. He was 12, brother was 14. For 9 months, 12 months before hospital attention. So this foot and ankle was eaten by the infection. Here was eaten, his hand, his shoulder, and the bone, the thicker bone in the lower leg, which is why I had this iron on. So this is where the bone is missing. There's no hope of walking without that bone. Why? You know, they can't take the iron off because the bone will close. Anyway, he was eventually referred to we got a phone call. We looked after him in hospital with IV medication. I then got a phone call, 30th of November, from the father saying he's been discharged and he's with his brother in Serekunda. So anyway, off I goes to find him. And I found him in this little room on this building site, in that condition. And the father had gone to the other end of the country and left him. So on the 2nd of December, he came to my house, where we started to look after him. He was very, very malnourished. He horrendous wounds here because they'd taken 2 deep strips off there to skin graft the foot and ankle because it was wide open where the infection had eaten away. So it was daily dressings, it was paying a nurse, it was having to hold him down because he had so much terror from his 8 months prior in hospital. Anyway, in March this year, there were some British surgeons visiting who thankfully agreed to do a fibular transplant in his leg to give him hope. So this is him going into surgery, and here he is when he came out of surgery. And he had one leg in full plaster, which is the recipient leg, and the one in half plaster is where they took the bone from. And then he came to mine after hospital, and this is him trying to stand for the first time using a frame. Now, he'd not been upright for 18 months. He didn't know how to be upright at all. He had no balance. And as well as his shoulder, his elbow, his wrist on his right side being very weak. But he always had an amazing smile. no matter what this boy suffered, and my goodness did he suffer. And you see the happiness and joy here. Now, this is just a few weeks ago, the full leg plaster is now reduced below knee, and the other one now, he doesn't need anything. And now, in fact, this is off, and as you can see in the last picture, he's in an orthopaedic boot, and he's upright, and he's on crutches, and he's done amazingly well. And it's this boy how I met Chris. And I know Chris says the last year or so. Chris, it was February, a few months ago. I know it feels like a year. It was through Ibrahima, when I was visiting Julie with the children. And Julie said, let's video this. Let me send it to this man, Chris. And this is how me and Chris, this was Ibrahima. And Chris's funding and donation has saved this life of this boy. He's needed 20, well you can see, just this one boy alone needs me and at least one other 24 hours to look after. How do we look after all the other child amputees, the ones being amputated and re-amputated, and the home visits and everything else? We couldn't, it wasn't possible. Chris's donations made it possible and saved the life of this boy, definitely. Can you play this video?
Can I just do it? This is one of the most impactful videos I have ever seen. This is a young lad standing on his own for the first time. He's been through what he's been.
Take your hands off him, Babuka. Where's the power? Where's the power? Who's got the power? Who's got the power? Who's got the power? Show me your face. Okay, come on.